All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll jump right into the packet. Have a little bit of news this week regarding markets, a little unconventional stuff, but definitely going to be, I don't know if it'll be real price positive, but it's going to get rid of some of our stocks. So one thing I wanted to hit on, I said it in the email, note the change in the meeting schedule on the front. We will not have a meeting in 2 weeks. And then rather than just keeping the former schedule, we move that up so that we'll meet after today. Our next meeting will be May 5th. And then we'll be on the every other week again from that point forward. If you throw away your packet, delete your email, whatever, it's always on the website. I keep it updated. So after today, next meeting will be May 5th. Jumping over, looking at yesterday's price sheet. This was from yesterday morning. 750 on old crop and 735 on the new crop. As we'll see in the export sales, there's really not a lot of new crop moving at all. So those numbers are just kind of more price discovery than anything. Trying to keep a price out there, keep it up enough, but also able to protect the co-op. I don't want to really be buying stuff at over 60-cent basis when I don't know where I can sell it. So that's what we're looking at there. What's feeding into those pricing? Take a look at page 3. We had the WASDE report, the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates, this last week, that monthly report that everybody looks at. Nobody expected a whole lot out of this report as far as big changes to the corn balance sheet and wheat overall. Basically, we had industry expecting just a ho-hum, no changes really. The thing that was kind of interesting in our world, and we'll dive into all the numbers here shortly, they increased white wheat production 31 million bushels for this last harvest. So, you know, we had thought maybe they'd been a little bit light, and evidently they decided to make up for it. So they increased our production 31 million bushels. They also flipped around then and said, well, that's all right. We'll negate part of that by saying we're going to export another 10 million bushels than we thought. So I've been beating that drum that we were at 180 for a lot of the year. And then a couple months ago, they bumped that number up to 190. And every meeting I highlight, you know, our pace compared to that, and was pretty skeptical we're going to see that number. Well, then they bumped it on up to 200 million bushels, and I really can't figure out how they're going to get there because May 31 is the end of the marketing year as far as USDA is concerned on their reporting system. Most all of our buyers right now are buying June and looking forward from there. So, you know, Korea this week, Taiwan, I believe Japan, if they're not there now, they will be shortly. They're looking for June shipment. So we'll get into those numbers on page 5. So the page 3, it hits on some of those changes to the balance sheet for wheat, but page 5 has actually got those numbers that'll show you where they increase the production, and then also that bump up in exports to 200 million bushels. So that's that data. The other one, page 6, that's not one that I've looked at a whole lot. I've never put it in the packet before. An exporter showed me. It's kind of interesting data though. That's just right from the USDA website. You can go in there and export sales and put your time period and put your commodity. And this will actually tell you, apologize, it cut off the names of those countries. You can kind of figure out what they are though by looking at the end of them. But that's actual breakdown, more detail than we usually see in this StoneX, you know, snapshot of where the buyers are for the year. And you go on down to that total commitment. That is at, it looks like 4,538,770. That's in metric tons. You do the equation on that, and it's going to come out to somewhere just shy of about 167 million bushels. And USDA is saying we're going to export 200 million bushels this year. And when you look at the calendar, I don't know. These are including those commitments that, you know, stuff that is sold that will ship in May. So kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. If we jump then to this yesterday's export sales report, the current week for white wheat at 2.9 million bushels wouldn't usually be a bad number to see, but don't look back up above at the prior 2 weeks before at a 500,000 bushel and a negative last week. So that doesn't do a whole lot with our hopes of getting to that number. And then you'll see again, we had a 0 under new crop sales. That number though, here in a week or two, when we see the next report with the business being traded now that was out in the June timeframe, we will see some new crops hitting, and probably anticipate that will be nearly 0 in the current going forward marketing year, but the new crop sales is where the action will be. We flip to the white, or that was actually from 2 weeks ago, those numbers, I apologize. It was the one reported last week. Flip it over and page 8, and it still has that 190 million bushel on the upper left hand corner, where it gives our export estimate at 190. Looks like that week most of our sales were to China, so bump them a little farther up the yearly total down on the bottom right, solidifies their number 2 slot. Now to get to the current one that was out tomorrow on page 9, that is going to be, it looks like 1.3 million bushels. So it's really kind of that fade off. And again, 0 for new crop sales. Knowing the business that was done though this week, we should see that start to push up. So page 16 will be your white wheat. And this is the one that includes on the upper left that USDA export estimate up to 200 million bushels. And you'll see that marketing year to date sales, that number right above, that 168 million bushels, that's where we currently stand. That form or that sheet that we went through on that query where I told you that number was going to equal 167, that number didn't take into account the number that was reported on the front of here, the 1.3 for the week. So that put us up to, 168. Why am I pretty confident we won't hit 170 on that? A lot of times we'll see sales that maybe won't get shipped in May. They'll move it from old crop and move it to new crop. So we could potentially see that coming down the road as well. So, if we hit 170, great, but I don't see us going much over it. So that'll, take those ending numbers of what they expect for us to carry out and increase it that much more, because we're not going to hit that 200. You can see the chart right below that, the first one in the middle on the left-hand side, that gives you your pace. That dashed more orangish red line is where we need to be at to meet expectations. And obviously the blue vertical bars are where we're at. So I would anticipate that to, it started to flatten out, but it'll continue to flatten going forward. So what is kind of interesting to take a look, white wheat, the major destination, a little over 1 million bushels for the week, was to Ecuador. And so that's kind of the current stuff. The exciting news we had this week was last week, USDA announced a CCC tender for, I think it was just shy of 73,000 bushels. So about 2.5 million bushels to Yemen. The business was bid on yesterday or day before yesterday. Their bids had to be in by noon. Results were announced yesterday. One exporter sold all 3 of those cargoes, and it was at a price somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 to 755. That's what the publish was. So you see your Portland cash price at 750. You know, they do have a little bit of fudge in there from the way the numbers get reported. So they can pay a little bit more than it says that they sold it for. But you're getting to the time of the year where things are pretty slow right now. And I think you've got some exporters that are willing to sell the stuff cheap because they've got elevators that are going to be idle and they've got to keep people working. And so this is all for June shipment period. So it won't show on new crop sales because it's purchased by the government. It's not going to show as an export sale, but we will see those start to show up on your inspections come June inspections report. It was about 2.5 million. The other slice of news with that is they made the announcement on the results of the tender yesterday and then turned right around and sent an email out for another purchase that they'll make next week. And actually it was slightly more. It was like 78,000 tons, I believe. So it figures out to about 2.8 to 2.9 million bushels. So that'll be another purchase next week. It'll kind of be interesting to see if it goes for more or less than this. But again, we also have to think, you know, some of these sales that are going to be classified on the USDA reporting are going to look like new crop, but we know dang well it's going to be in June, and technically it's going to be old crop bushels that get shipped on it. It's just going to be classified as a, you know, the next marketing year, but still that's the data that gets reported, and that's what we have to trade off of. So with that, with the year wrapping up like that, and you know, CCC coming in and making a couple of big purchases, there was some speculation they'd be in, you know, before we get to what we call new crop, with new crop actually hitting the bin. Do they have any firepower for more? I'm not really sold on it. This might kind of be the last hoorah. There's, not to get political, there's speculation that, you know, some of the wheat, they wouldn't buy as much donation wheat to Yemen this year due to some of their aid that they've been sending to Ukraine in the form of buying wheat and having it shipped to, rather than sending money to Ukraine, they buy wheat from them and then it gets shipped to as donation wheat to countries such as Yemen. So it's always, I mean, kind of a win-win for us. We get to do something good. And, you know, when they buy directly from the US farmer, is, you know, it helps support our market, but it also sends food aid where it's desperately needed. So I don't see Mr. Powell here today. I didn't know, does anybody else out there have any updates? Any questions you want to jump in? I don't see anything in the chat. John's quiet. I don't know what got into him. He's not saying anything today. You know? Yeah. So
you're just talking away.
If you guys don't have anything, I will dismiss class, and it looks like maybe that dirty 4-letter word wind isn't blowing, and probably see some sprayers moving today, I'm gonna guess. So with that, I will talk to you guys in 3 weeks, not 2. We'll talk to you later.